Hi, hello. The journey of 1,000 streams starts with technical delay, especially when you're trying something new. But we think we've gotten that taken care of. I should be audible. Um, there should be no music playing right now because we're not on the scene with the music, but that will show up soon. Um, this is Mark Delacruz with Laura Link, product lead for Laura Link, coming back to you with another planning stream this Tuesday. Awesome, thank you, 20. This one is going to be a little bit of a partner stream. I'm going to be working through a system I have some familiarity with because if you check our archives on YouTube, I did go through and do the Dune game from Modiphius. And so this time we're going to go with the Star Trek Adventures games, which is also based on the 2D20 system and but should be basically but it has its own twists and turns, and of course is set in the Star Trek universe, which is we'll discuss how that changes things up. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to basically bring up the screen with our basically with Tony. Tony is now visible. Tony is now should be audible, I hope. Say something, Tony.
Now Tony's audible.
Now Tony is audible. Basically, whether or not Tony is audible to the stream itself is always an interesting question.
I think Tony is audible to the stream, but I cannot hear you through anything other than the stream itself. That's why I'm running slow.
Okay, so you're going to be a second off because you can't hear me. All right, if I... there we go. If I do this, you're going to have to mute the stream, but I should be audible on less of a delay to you.
Yes, we are now good.
Okay, cool. I have made myself audible basically in guest stream so that it enables you to hear that. Music is good. Awesome. I can see music is playing. Now basically, if it's a really cool song, feel free to hit exclamation point song and tell me what it is, because that way I can keep track of it in the future. It's set to chill cinematic currently, because interestingly enough, Pretzel doesn't have a station for science fiction. Which is what we're talking about today. It's science fiction, Star Trek Adventures. You and I are both old school Star Trek fans. Basically, I'm guessing basically neither of us was around for original series except for reruns.
Right.
But basically, I saw Next Generation was really my first series. I didn't watch much even of the reruns of original series that much. I saw maybe an episode here or there, but I think most of my exposure to Next Generation came from Star Trek came from Next Generation. It's the same for you?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, it was really big into Star Wars because, born in 77, growing up through the early 80s and all that, that was a big thing. But one weird memory I have, I think it was HBO, always seemed to run The Wrath of Khan and Empire Strikes Back right beside each other. So
wow.
Since I'd want to watch Empire, of course, I'd also get sucked into Wrath of Khan, and then really started becoming the whole Trekkie back in '91 during the 25th anniversary. So, yeah, when I say Trekkie, I'm talking costumes. I've got my name listed in the Nitpicker's Guide. We're just Trekking.
Wow, I remember those Nitpickers guides. Those huge, thick.
I've got books right up there.
Oh, those are. I remember pouring over there. As a kid who was devouring books, of course. I remember those were nice, big, huge books that were ridiculously thick and full of absolutely silly details. That as a young fan, I love. Yeah, basically I remember the movies were probably the original series movies were probably my main contact with the original series cast. I have a really interestingly strong memory of drive-in. Basically, one of my first experiences at a drive-in was seeing. I want to say it was the end of 2 or the end of 2 or no, maybe at the end of 3. The scene where they are. Or maybe it's the beginning of 3. It's the re-education of Spock scene, which is basically when they're showing up on Vulcan.
The re-education.
Basically, where Spock is.
That's 4.
Is that 4? Is that all the way to 4?
Where he's going through all the memory tests on the computer. Yeah. That's beginning of 4.
Okay.
That's the one with the whales, for those who don't know the numbers.
Right, right. Okay. Is that where they do that? Is that where they get the dump back out of McCoy? Or is that in 3?
That was the end of 3.
Okay, so that may be what I remember.
And the very end of 3, I think, was like him coming out, lowering the hood, and I think recognizing Jim, and everybody celebrates and ignore the fact that they just stole and destroyed a whole starship and all that,
Yeah, that comes back to haunt them later. It's fine. But yeah,
just talk about whales, they're fine.
Yeah, one with whales is a great one. So basically that kind of basically, so we all have basically a very solid. Obviously, we carried through. We probably both watched DS9, things like that. And so, basically, I guess the first question when I'm approaching this from a GM standpoint is, well, I talked a little bit about this with Doctor Who. Is what's your idea of when we talk about Star Trek, or we talk about a Star Trek role playing game? What's the situation you're wanting your players to be? You've never seen 4 from beginning to end. Hold on one second. How could you stop watching Star Trek 4 partway through? Wow. Okay. I mean, I guess the ending isn't as funny, so you guys can kind of stop. But man, 4 is a really good movie.
Admiral, there'll be whales here.
They are not the hell your whales.
Hello, computer.
Like, yeah, there are just so many good lines in 4. In any case, sorry, I got distracted by someone saying they haven't seen Star Trek 4. My gosh. We're stopping the stream.
It was 20. Broadcast the shame. It was 20.
It was 20. We're going to stop the stream. We're going to take this all down. We're going to do one of those Twitch co-stream things where everyone can watch a movie on Amazon or whatever it is, and we're just going to show 20 Star Trek 4. But in any case, watch party, woo! All right. In any case, when you think of a Star Trek role-playing game, what type of situation, basically, are you thinking? Are you going more, basically, next generation, basically more utopian, Planet of the Week type stuff? Are you thinking DS9, intricate, basically a close-knit crew in a tight situation, or even wackier and weirder stuff like Voyager or Star Trek or Lower Decks even?
I mean, I do have the Lower Decks guides. In fact, I think one of the items I sent you was one of the Lower Decks adventures. But since this is, let's be honest here, this is the first game I've ran since 2004, and it'll be the first time I've ever ran Star Trek Adventures, despite buying all the books since the original was dropped at Gen Con, 3-4 years ago. We're going to start easy and do the introduction. And then I'm going to, if me and my friends like it, then we'll talk about, do we want to go next gen? Do we want to go back TOS? Do we want, like you said, the Utopia? Do we want to go back to where it's more exploration? Do we want to do a couple of one-offs where it's the Lower Decks style crew? Because there's a great looking Lower Decks adventure that's almost plays off a Galaxy Quest.
That sounds amazing. But even basically, I've read through the starter set. I haven't read basically. I've glanced at the other stuff, but I haven't really looked through it as much. But the starter set is what I focused on. Yes, I actually don't have the PDFs actually set up basically on stream this time, so I have them. I just have to. It'll be a couple seconds before I can actually pull them up. But in any case, even inside of that, there's a little bit basically how you're wanting to play it in terms of a more realistic start, basically, which is good. Basically, maybe tend a little bit more towards more modern Star Trek. Discovery, basically, is a little bit or Enterprise is a little bit more. I won't say grim and gritty because it's still Star Trek, but it's a little bit grittier, a little bit more. People die, choices matter, etc., etc. And then Next Generation is a little bit more. The cast of basically, there's a sense that the cast and the crew are going to make it through this, no matter how it turns out.
Yeah, I think we're probably just going to go because we're all about the same age. So probably the more the 90s feel, the next gen, more current, the feel would probably be Lower Decks or Strange New Worlds. Which, even though Strange New Worlds is set in the same time period as TOS and Discovery, it still has a, especially more than Discovery, just has a brighter feel to it. Don't get me wrong, I like Discovery. Looking forward to the final season, but
well, there are different feels to how it works and how it plays out. So basically, that's a great starting point in terms of, okay, so we're looking for that kind of thing. So when we're looking at this adventure, we're looking to basically make sure that it's a kind of a smooth process, that clues are basically clues are a little bit more obvious, maybe, especially for a group that's starting out. We're also looking to make it probably basically there's some basically we may look at some of the options, because they have some options in this for starter adventure, which are, if you fail to make this person an ally. Basically, so it's like you look at those and you're going to be like, okay, do we basically either you could put your hand on the scale a little bit on that, basically where they're like, okay, no, this person is basically willing to be convinced, or are they going to be the type of person who's going to be like, no, it's going to be a really hard upsell to make this person actually want to join. Basically, they've gone over to the dark side. There is no redemption arc for this person. But basically, by the end of the episode, they will either be dead or actively fighting against the crew. It is another way of looking at it. So let me actually get the, where is it? Campaign booklet. There it is. Let me actually get that there. I think I have PDF. There's PDF. Now is PDF actually going to pull up the right thing? There's PDF. So I can actually pull it up. Whoa, that's huge. Hi, Star Trek Adventures. How you doing? You're ginormous. Let's make you a little bit bigger. And then we'll make you a little bit smaller. There's also this floating Mark Delacroix product lead that's all the way up there. I'm going to turn that off. What? Oh, no, that's just... That shouldn't be visible to anybody. Why are you here? That's
professional.
Awesome. Oh, it's a different one. Cool. Awesome. Great. Love it. It's fine. It's fine. We're all fine here. How about you? Oh, sorry. Wrong series. I'm a little bit quiet compared to Tony. I should probably sit a little bit more forward so I could be a little bit more audible compared to Tony. Tony's trying to take over my stream. I see how it is.
Mine, not yours, mine.
Ah, darn it. He claimed it. I can't do anything about it once he claims it.
I mean, you know, I've got my tea. I'm talking, and it's been a long day, and I'm tired, so...
Oh, no. We'll have to shout out Tony's stream at the end of this. There's a command for that. Exclamation SO.
No, we don't, because Tony hasn't been doing it since, like, November.
Yes, that makes it perfect. Basically, we're going to force you. We're going to make it awkward for you and be like, yeah, there you go.
Curse you!
Is that guest slot 1? That is guest slot 1. Cool. That's gone now. All right, so we've got this PDF, which is floating here in the void, and I'm going to move it in a second. Boop. There it is. It's kind of in the background there. So basically, looking at how they have this laid out, basically talking a little bit about how first of all, I'll talk a little bit about how the Star Trek Adventure Systems works. If you were here for the Dune stream, if you weren't, you can catch that on our YouTube channel, where we have that. I believe I archived that one. If not, then you'll have to believe me that I actually archived it, and it's just hidden there, and you just can't find it, and it's Google's fault. I'll blame them. In any case, basically, Modiphius' systems run on what is known as the 2D20 system, which is it's a success-based system, much like Vampire the Masquerade, or Shadowrun, Star Wars. I think the original D6 Star Wars was a success-driven system, where it basically where you're counting number of you're rolling a number of dice, trying to get a number of successes, is how those systems work. In this case, you're rolling D20, so your range is going to be slightly wider, but it is skill checks. So much like a Roll20, a D20 system, it's still a skill check. So you're still looking to, in this case, roll under a number. So higher skill, roll under. Rather than adding a number, it's always kind of 6 dozen one, half dozen another. It depends on how you want your number bounding to be. But you're rolling that number of times. So that gives you, it basically makes it D20 type system with some kind of basically it builds in some kind of boundaries and niceness to help deal with sometimes what you can end some of the randomness of just I rolled 1d20, I rolled a 1 or a 20 in this case, and now you're done. That's it. And basically it's like, oh, okay, I actually have basically I can buy additional dice. I'm rolling 2 of them, so right off the bat, it's like you're always rolling with advantage. If you have if you're seeking a single success, so it works nicely from that standpoint. But basically, their big, their big selling point to their system, in addition to the 2d20, is the fact that they have something called momentum and threat. And that is that is how they kind of build tension throughout a game. It is the idea of the fact that these players have these bennies, these tokens, this reserve that they have that they can spend, that they can use to give them successes. Momentum and threat are great, but players are always reluctant to give threat. They we'll talk a little bit about that because I've seen some interesting things with that. But how that works is basically momentum is a good thing for the players. And there are different options they have which can give them momentum. They can gain momentum on successes and things like that. It's the idea of the fact that the players are doing well and are going to continue to do well. Momentum. But there's also the fact that there's an opposition to them, which, much like when we may remember when I was giving out Devil's Bargains in Blades in the Dark last Friday. If you caught that stream, if you didn't, I know that one's on YouTube, so you can definitely check that one out. But that one, basically, it's the idea of the fact that the GM is always like, oh, you could do better here, but at the cost of the fact that things are going to it means that the situation is getting worse. You're succeeding at this, but the situation as a whole is getting worse. I like it as a system a little bit better than Modiphius's. Modiphius has their system where you're rolling additional dice, which can have bad effects, so you can end up succeeding, but a bad effect occurs. But they're the same idea, the fact that the situation is getting worse, but you're still moving on. Both have the same idea. It feels a little bit more heroic to be like, oh, I succeeded, and basically I give the GM a point, or I help the GM a little bit, or basically it also is a currency the GM can ramp up for a situation to basically show to the players that, hey, this situation is getting more serious. Because a bunch of Klingons show up, I'm adding 4 to the threat pool because these Klingons have shown up. All of that to say, so you're going for a cinematic feel on that, and so when you're looking through this, that's kind of how I feel like we're going to approach this. Is we're going to look to help keep that momentum rolling from scene to scene, and kind of treat it more movie episodic TV like. It's kind of the feel I get reading through the rules and looking through the adventure, how we actually want to actually build this out. So I'm going to stop showing this and actually show the thing we're here for. That's Lorelink. So yeah, by the way, I suppose I should actually introduce Lorelink. Sometimes I'm terrible at the streaming thing.
It's only a half hour in.
It's only a half hour in. We've talked about Star Trek, and the reasons you should watch Star Trek 4. We should basically in role-playing systems and things like that. But Lorelink is actually the star of the show, as it were. Is Lorelink, that thing over my head.
Wait, what?
And that is the fact that we are a GM. We are a company that are producing a GM toolkit, online toolkit to help them build out, help GMs, storytellers. I believe in Star Trek they are still GMs, keepers and other game systems and things like that. Help you build out your adventures, store your adventures, and help run them. So what we're talking about here is how you actually build out a Star Trek adventure type game. So I'm going to go ahead and let's create a new campaign here. We can add campaign icons and things like that. This is going to be a little bit more of a draft type situation. We're not actually going to build out art and things like that for it, but we have the ability to add that art and things like that to help us identify things better. So, this adventure is basically a star beyond the stars.
Yeah, part of my face just got a lot brighter because we don't have dark mode yet.
It's just, yeah, it is a very, very white screen. Dark mode is on the list of things that we are going to add, but yeah, if you have a particularly bright screen, it's going to kind of show up to you right there. That's hilarious. If we need to, instead of studio lightings, we've just used Lore Link to help you out. It's an additional little known feature. We're thinking about charging for that, basically adding that in later as we'll default to dark mode, but we'll charge you for studio mode. So, basically a quick description where your monitors will be cute. Yup.
Now my key lights are right down here.
Mine are.
I didn't plug those in. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, how could you? The fact that I'm usually up on a more dark background, the fact that I'm on a white background is making me feel more blown up. Like my color balancing feels really weird and off. And basically, if I was a better streamer, I would spend more time dealing with my color. It's a good thing I wear my if I need to wear more foundation, my nose is really shiny. In any case, still getting distracted here. So a description for Star Trek Adventures. They have a decent one here in the adventure. So we'll put that. We'll basically. This is a GM only description. This isn't something you're going to show the players. Basically, but I'm going to pull this here. Introduction is how you're going to want to talk about it with your players. So the question for you, Tony, basically, again, because technically we're running this with you, is what type of are you more of a I want to be prepared for every eventuality, or are you more I want to have depth, basically kind of depth first or breadth first type of GM? Do you like going through setting up all basically kind of a skeleton of everything, or do you prefer going through and breaking it down scene by scene, as it were?
I mean, personally, I like making stuff up on the fly and all that, but since we are going off of the essentially choose your own adventure, here is exactly what you want to read to make sure everybody's getting the full, it starts out with the captain's log. It's like, I don't think you touched on the way these are set up are like they're 3 acts. It's an episode. Each game is like an episode of the series. So it starts out with the captain's log and stuff like that. So yeah, I want to say, because like I said, I have messed with this a little bit, at conventions and stuff like that. So where is so it's like I've got, I went ahead through captain's log in the description, for example, for Act 1. But
yeah, there's kind of basically, it would be a great, that makes sense for like introduction or something like that, where that is basically your intro speech to your players. What are you starting off the game with? That makes sense to put that there. PDF always have weird formatting. I should just open up my usual reformatter. There are so many good ones out there.
You see, I would look at the PDF on one screen and just type it in on the other.
Now I can no longer hear you. Oh no, come back here.
So I get for taking too many typing classes.
I 100% just closed the wrong button. Okay, now you can hear me again. Cool. I 100% clear. I closed I went to close a window and I instead closed. Basically, when Mark closes a window, he closes a tab. He instead closes a window. It's fine. Okay. trying to remember. Oh, that's this way. I'm getting my mind break over because that makes my life just a little bit easier.
Yeah, Wolf Mom, that's part of why it's just as easy for me to type it all in as copy paste, because I have to go through everything and format anyway. So
there's basically here's a that weapons log, bold that, get that out there. So basically, we talked about this being basically in terms of this being kind of a 3-act thing, and so a 3-act situation scenario and setup. Basically, and basically the game itself kind of breaks it down into three sections, which you basically, depending on how solid of a group you are, what type of basically how committed your group is, you might get through all 3 episodes, all 3 sections as a single episode. Or you might basically, or it may be three separate sessions. And knowing your group is going to help you with that. Basically, whether or not you set this up as 1 campaign, or 3 campaigns, and basically break it up. Basically, depending on how much you want to keep things separated out. It really looks much more towards PDFs. Yeah. Basically, something else you could do is you could create an overall timeline in here. Basically, events are probably going to be the major focus of how I'm basically looking at how they have the books laid out for Star Trek Adventures. Events and locations are going to be probably the primary focus for where I'm putting information from the PDFs into LoreLink in. There's going to be some information on basically locations. I'm going to have probably slightly less because they don't go into full details on these planets. But I'm going to want to keep it there so I have a good idea of where location names and things like that, so I can make notes of things that are happening, basically maybe distances and things like that, just so that I have basically a decent clue and overall clue. I'm not going to invest a ton of time into locations because this isn't a dungeon crawl type thing where basically you need to know that room A is next to room B, which is basically directly under room C, things like that. But you're going to want to have, okay, there's a planet and there's these things, there's these things in this system. Systems are probably how I would break down. Basically, I would have a parent system, and basically we'll have 3 or 4 different systems boiled out throughout. And then basically, given the fact that I'm going to go kind of high level, I'm probably going to create those first, and that way I can just reference them inside of locations. So looking those up. The first one is just the spaceship. The Alakirby? I think that's the name of the ship. Yes.
we need something horrible to happen. Let's use an Oberth class.
Nothing good happens to these warships. I did find it amusing that the PC ship is a Galaxy class. Like, okay, we're going large for the first one.
Got to cater to the fans.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to beat up Constellation.
What's the population though on a Galaxy class? It's several thousand, isn't it? So you're going to have some this is one of those where if for a one-shot, you could kind of ignore that as background materials. Players will always want Galaxy class because that's what the Enterprise is, etc., etc.
The Excelsior. No. Excelsior. Forget Galaxy. I'll take Excelsior.
Well, you might end up with people wanting to do, even though there's technically only one of them in existence. What's the one from DS9?
Oh, the Defiant.
The Defiant.
I can't remember the class.
Defiant class. I think it actually is Defiant class, if I remember correctly. So, basically that one.
Yep, that was Defiant class.
Yeah, that one is much smaller. It's a much more compact crew. It is just the officers which are on that one. It has warp capability, it has cloaking, things like that. So I could see that one being basically a pull for people. It's slightly cooler, a little bit more combat oriented, and you don't have to worry about. You are the head basically because you're the captain on a Galaxy class as a GM. Basically, it does provide a rich thing outside of a one shot because you're going to have basically opportunities for adventures which are just on the ship that involve. It's an easy way to pull in additional characters and things like that, because you have all of those people to pull from. But it may also be something you have to remind your players of: is hey, you're not just making decisions for the 3, 4, 5 NPCs in this basically PCs in this group. You're making these decisions for a ridiculously large ship and full of populations. But in this case, basically we've got the bear, which we have a description for basically. Mysteriously others. Okay, we'll just basically we'd have the Alcabear, and we have a couple of different locations on the Alcabear. We have engineering. We have astronavigation, I think is the other one. Where you end up. Turbo shaft is another one. So basically, I'm sketching these out at high level so that I can basically ready room, sick bay, stellar topography. That's the word. That's the phrase which always escapes my brain.
A phrase that pays.
Mm-hmm. Basically 40k rogue trader because basically epic level ships in 40k. Ooh. So now I've got a list of locations here that I've kind of sketched out, and I don't need to add a lot of detail to them right now, but I like having them here so that when the players end up on the ship, even if I don't do anything else with this, I've got this list here. So that when somebody asks me where are we going or things like that, and the players reach that stuck moment, because when you're ending up with larger scale stuff, basically you're going to sometimes hit the moment where people are going to walk into something and be like, we came out of the shuttlecraft and I don't know what we're doing now. But so you're like, okay, well here's some options. Basically, you've got this list here. You can give them some quick options. You can basically, if you want to treat that way, if you want to do more detail on this stuff. You can go through and you can build these out yourself later, and you'd be like, but it gives you direction to go from there, so you're not just stuck with blank page syndrome of I've got an entire ship I have to decorate out. No, it's like, okay, I've got a couple of spaces I need to decorate. Basically, a couple of spaces I need to decorate out. If the players decide to add other stuff into it, like they decide to go to the hollow suites if the ship has one, or to the mess or something like that. I can add those in here relatively quickly and make some quick notes on it, and I have a link to it here. But also having them here means the fact that I can make notations to them in the other, the other things. So if I create here, so if I do Act 1, Scene 1. Actually, depending on how you want these to sort, you could either do it as explore the science vessel, and then do the short description as Act 1, Scene 1, and then keep your notes in there. So you can sort by short description, or you can basically put it as part of the name and then just sort by the name if you want to have more useful information in there. But basically looking at it from that perspective, you can break it down into multiple. Basically, you're breaking down the situation into multiple scenes, basically like the game calls, because you're looking at it from a basically from a TV show's perspective. Okay, basically the ship is the scene. You go through that, and then you end up breaking it down from there. Like they essentially just have the one scene in the basically one scene essentially per act. It looks like, if I'm reading this correctly.
I think you're right. Act 1, Scene 1, Scene 2.
Do you have a scene 2?
Act 2, Survivor. Scene 1 is like 2 pages in on that one. It looks like they don't have a standard. Some will have one scene, one will have more than one scene.
Okay.
Based on my all-encompassing research of 7 pages of the booklet.
Looking at the booklet. So you can basically for breaking this down, you can either dump all the information you need on basically for exploring the science vessel. That's scene. That's why that's an act 2. That's right. I'm off an act. That's why I'm confused about how this is working. This is in unclaimed space is the name of the first actual scene. Space, and this is just you approaching the ship, making sure you basically making sure you actually can pilot the shuttle from the ship to the thing. This is more of a starter, basically a starter scenario thing. This is basically easing your players into figuring out how game systems work. You're on the basically. I need a roll. This is how rolls work. You're not going to obviously say, "Oops, they steer into the sun," and then basically the adventure is over if they fail this roll. But it's meant to be that simple start, and then they have a scene 2, which is actually getting into the ship itself. Modiphius does do a good job with systems like that. I remember liking their way that they did the Dune tutorial adventure, similarly, where they're introducing systems. It's a good GM. Good way of teaching new systems is you introduce new ideas slowly, start with a test, figure out what the results are, introduce combat from there. So Act 1, Scene 1, which is mostly just going to be basically just this first one. So this one is likely to be just a straightforward kind of dump of what the module is telling you is basically a first scenario. So we go grid line breaks, giant ball of text.
And I would greatly appreciate it if our coworkers stopped having a social media conversation while the social media manager is on a Twitch stream. Because I have now realized I have not turned off the notifications for Slack yet. All this stuff that I haven't done with the redone computer.
Real bad. Rude.
Wow, I know where I sit. Wow.
Read the following aloud. So that gets that. We'll break this off like that. Silvercraft, that breaks there. We'll change that into italics, so it's a little bit more obvious that it's a reading section. And for the players, then this is they conveniently give me this as substate interference. So basically, this subspace interference here. So basically, Citrus scan cannot penetrate. Basically, prevents players from performing tasks related to systems. This is a good thing looking at it. Basically, this is definitely something that I might leave here, but I definitely would pull out and add to the Alcavere's child location notes. Because that way, basically, adding it there means the fact that if I go into basically any of these here, and if I'm in I've got that note there that reminds me of the fact that, hey, if you're on this ship, the players can't do any of this stuff. And basically, if I put it here, it's in all my locations. So if I ever come in here and I check a location, I'm going to be reminded of the fact that, okay, this is a problem with that. I don't have to think, okay, where did I put that note? Oh, that's right. It was in the first act, scene 1 is basically where that conversation is. It's in every event, and anytime I reference that location or anything in one of those locations, that information is going to be there for me. So going back to that, let's go back to edit mode. I did all that and I didn't save that when I was so excited. Oh, that's why, because it's over here. It's fine. I'm going to save now, though. So save early, save often. So basically, that breaks that off. Basically, plotting a course is its own section. And it has its own little... And it applies to more than just video games. Great. So this is breaking out all the stuff about basically about how to run the system. Another assistant from that. Let's go ahead and bold this stuff. It likes putting in big capitals here. Again, this is just formatting for readability. One of the downsides of pulling an adventure from a PDF is the fact that you lose some of that formatting. Right now, there isn't a really nice, easy way of translating that. It's on our list of features that we would like to have, but everybody does their own formatting differently in PDFs, and so that's the advantage and disadvantage you're always going to run into with PDFs and things like that. They work great as long as you are inside of Adobe Acrobat's little risky or anything that reads PDF format, but outside of that, they're miserable to work with any kind of formatting outside of that. They have line breaks in all the wrong places, etc., etc. So if you're wanting to communicate information to players or things like that, you're copying it out of here, it's going to be a little bit messy. So reformatting in here means I at least have a clean source I can pull information out of in the future. There's results of the roll. Actually, there's the rest of results of the roll. Dice. So now basically I have all of this. One more section. Of course, there's always one more section. Oops, nope. I skipped the stuff. Copy line breaks. Copy, paste. Do that. So it goes there. So that. So I've got all that basically now. Basically I've got the shuttle bay and things like that. I can basically, if I want to highlight that shuttle bay, I can pull out the location. Did I create shuttle bay? This one I created shuttle bay as a location. I did not create shuttle bay as a location. I should create shuttle bay as a location. Now I've created shuttle bay as a location. And look, there it is. Boom. So that's there. Now I have a link to the shuttle bay. I want to basically get a quick link to that. So basically this is one way of breaking it down in terms of I want all the information from the PDF in LoreLink. And basically if you only want, this is a great, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. It's going to involve pulling stuff out of the PDF, dumping it into LoreLink. It's going to, obviously we're going to take some time formatting and things like that. You saw me doing all of that. that is not the only way you have to do something. It is, if you're the type of person who wants to keep everything in just one location. If I just want to keep everything in this browser, that's how I would set this up. If I'm the type of person who's like, I want to keep everything in the PDF, but I want to use this for notes, I would pull the events out scene by scene, the locations out, much like we did, and then I would use each of them just to give me notes of things that I should pay attention to in the PDF. Basically calling out how roles work, calling out basically the fact that okay, they're in the shuttle bay, and maybe linking from the event to the shuttle bay just inside of here, just so I have I'm using this as my source, not my necessarily source of truth for the entire adventure, but the source of truth for my notes. Basically, LoreLink is flexible in the standpoint of the fact that it can be you can build out your entire adventure in here, you can have all of your information in here, and keep it all there, or you can move it to keep it in notes and things like that.
Well, let's run off the assumption that I'm going to be using a tablet or a Chromebook. I'm not going to be wanting to switch back and forth between LoreLink, other PDFs, and the space of our gaming area. I'm also not going to have a lot of space to have that and the pile of books and stuff like that.
So you're going to want to focus more on keeping LoreLink, but doing it more in this format in terms of
correct.
Let's pull stuff from the PDF in here. Let's break it out.
Get it all connected.
Yeah, get it all connected. Make sure that it all makes sense to you. So you're going to that does mean it's going to be a little bit more work in LoreLink.
Oh yeah.
And so you're going to spend a little bit more time formatting stuff. There are tons of I'm using a line break tool. It is like text. If you do a search for remove line breaks, you will generally find one or two, which is just copy your text in, click a button. It will remove all of the line breaks for you. You could tell it to keep in paragraph line breaks. It will preserve, but it will remove any other types of any other line breaks and other types of line breaks. So you can make that a little bit easier to deal with for formatting standpoints. If I'm keeping this as the system of record, so I'm going to save that off, and I'm likely going to remove that. I'm also going to probably. I did save this. No, wait, I don't want to just. There it is. I moved that in. I'm like, I just did something. The joys of web browsers, they love to try to be helpful and just let you drag stuff.
Bless their hearts.
They're like, you wanted to drag that in there, right? I'll just do that for you. Like, no, don't. And so setting those up, and so I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit in terms of rather than spending a bunch of time in here doing all the formatting and things like that. I'm to jump ahead a little bit in terms of we're talking about saving space at the table, so it's that. This is scene 2. It's interesting they have encounters broken out as different than scenes. Yes, I know something has been interrupted. So it's going to be up to you how you want to actually sort that out. If you want to make that a scene 0 to preserve all of that with the way they do scenes, or if you just want to list it as part of Act 2 and don't actually have a scene part of it. This is scene 1, exploring the science also. So I'm building these out really quickly so that we can do a little bit more talking about how we want to link things together. So I've got some of these actually set up here. Basically, I can keep them sort of like this because I gave them all the short descriptions that made sense. I can use this kind of sorting to keep track of them. Now that falls apart a little bit when we have these weird sort of investigations, basically these encounters. If you have multiple encounters in an act which take place between stuff, if this book, basically I haven't looked at their other books. If they keep to this formatting, you're going to need to either do scene 0 or scene 0.5 or scene 1.5 if you're wanting to just keep everything in an events list, because that's how you want to run your adventure, is just run everything out of an events list. Now, you don't basically with Lore Link, we do offer you a couple other ways you can format this. You can go into timelines, and you can create a timeline, and we can call this we'll call this part 1. Welcome back, 20. This is give that short description. Go into that timeline. We can then add these events and the orders that they happen. So incline unseen space. Abort the activate 1. Investigation captures 2. And then I can add intervals. Let's see, 1. Call that Act 1, which has its own technical name for Act 1. If I remember correctly. The Lost Ship. There it is. That, and then I can add another interval for 2 and 3. And we can call that one what the second scene is, second act is. Oh, I've got this set to dual page, and that's why this is messing me up here. Ugh. Like I'm trying to page up and down, and it's like I'm missing half the text, and it's driving me a little batty. Please wait. Oh, is this set up? Oh, is this set up that all these are single page PDFs? Ah. No, these are multiple pages. It's just like this. Okay, good. I am less terrified. There we go. Single page. Sorry, I had my PDF set to dual page room, which means if I was paging up, but it wasn't big enough to actually display both of them. So I was paging up and paging down and getting random parts of it, which was driving me a little crazy. This is Act 2. The Survivor. Okay. So this is another way, basically. So you have basically your first way of basically of kind of looking through in terms of how a section could break down is basically just using the events list in basically in here, and you can even go into each of these like incline space. You could then basically add a trigger and associate it with the next event, like next one for that one is that. Now I can go to that. I can go to it. I can add a trigger that goes backwards, so I can always go both ways. And I can add a trigger to the next section, which is next act is that. So now I have a way of looking through it. I have this list here, which shows me forward and backwards in terms of what events work. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to suggest that you use Act 1 and Scene 1 in the list of names, just so you can make sorting them a little bit easier. Because if I don't have these names happen to be in alphabetical order correctly, it's going to be a little bit messy. You're going to end up with that not having a clue which one is previous and which one is forward. Putting that into the name is going to help with that a little bit.
Yeah, because I'm not memorizing that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. No, if you get lucky, you get it. Otherwise, yeah. So that's a disadvantage to doing it that way. I went back out here. I could just go back in here. So include space. So I can also add down here at the bottom of this and just add. Let's be like. Events. And I have to, again, you have to know the name, or if you've named it Act 1, you can search for it that way. But if I remember the fact that it's exploring the science vessel, I can link it like that, and now I don't have to remember it anymore. It's just there. I can put it from there, and I can link to it that way. And I can, again, do the same thing. Actually, the next one's a board. Yeah, okay. I messed up. I have to correct it because otherwise it's still with me. There we go. That's correct. Then I go there. And then in description. That. Now I've got all that. I don't basically. I'm just staying in events, and I can right click. I can right click these because so when we're actually looking at them, I can right click them and then use it to open another tab, and that way I can go back and forth in advance. I can have multiple tabs open that let me see those, and I can right click between them that way. If all I'm wanting to do is mostly just stay in events, and basically it's all I'm wanting to deal with is just events. The timeline gives you a better overall look at it. It lets you see basically, okay, I can see that's that one. That's that one, that's that one, that's that one. It also lets you do things if you want to basically pile on additional events which are happening in the background. Like, for example, in this one, we have basically we know that there is a Romulan boarding party which is stuck on the ship who are working in engineering. And if you want to, basically if you're putting a little bit more work into this and things like that, basically as a starter adventure, it just has the Romulans only start working or interacting or doing stuff as soon as they show up on camera. But basically, it's a starter adventure. There's only basically there's that. But if you're wanting to put a little bit more work and things like that, you look at it and you go, oh, okay. So if they're working in engineering, what basically maybe I want to put signs or indications, and I'm going to add a separate timeline in here for Romulan events. What are the Romulans doing? Same with the survivor, who's also on board the ship as well. Basically, to give the players that feeling that stuff is happening, that events are occurring even when they're not. Basically, even when they're delayed or if they get stuck. Basically, some of those events you could trigger one of those events just kind of as a, oh hey, basically the lights flicker or the lights come back. Basically, the ship returns to full power and then shuts back down again. Oh, well, basically, then your engineering person will be like, hey, this feels like someone's messing around with the ship and someone's trying to restart the ship. Oh, that's weird. That means we should probably get to engineering, basically, to look at that. If they're busy, if they've gotten stuck wandering around the bridge or the ready room or the master, they've created their own tangent, as players are wont to do.
My party and libraries. My D&D party and libraries.
Oh, gosh, so many books. Read all of them. But basically, so that gives you a quick reference for what basically I planned this out in advance. I have a series of escalations already set up, and basically putting it on the timeline gives you a way of tracking that basically in parallel to what the main plot is. So you don't have to be like, okay, so what's going on with the Romulans at this point? You could set that up basically in parallel. The other way that you could also look at it and handle it is using sessions, which are our big overall kind of one-stop shop. If you're a type of person who I want everything on one page, and then I want to reference things from that page. Sessions are essentially our first pass, our rough draft for what GM screens eventually will look like. They're basically, obviously we'd love to make this a little bit more graphical and things like that and fit more stuff onto page, But from a starting standpoint, these work really great. So basically, your session 1 is going to basically, we'll just call it session 1 for now. You can have your date played, basically a short description of maybe if you like being more descriptive about what your sessions are set up like, whether or not it's actually happened, it's currently active going on, or you've completed it just for your sorting purposes. You can archive sessions that have already happened, or if it's been 5 years you're in this campaign, maybe you start archiving your early sessions so you don't have to sort through all of them in the list. So you pull that out, and now I have a place where I can put events, locations, and even game objects that I set up. I can dump them all into one place. For example, we have that, basically we know we're going to have some creatures. We're going to be the Roman boarding party. And I'm going to use this section to pull their stats in that they have. That's the infected version. Where's the base version? Do we not have stats for the? Do they not have stats for the base Romulans?
There should have been a PDF of character sheets. Would it have been in there?
If you have that close at hand, check that. Because in the adventure, they talk about the major NPC, or basically does Star Trek do non-major NPCs just have default stats? Oh, at the back of this booklet. Okay. They're just all the way at the back of the base. They call out this special one somewhere else.
Map.
You say that, but I see a Romulan ship.
I'm just seeing.
I see
a commander, major NPC.
Yeah, they said that basically it says in the notes that there is. So in any case, you would basically, assuming you can find those, basically find the stats for them. And this is one of the reasons why we like dumping things into LoreLink, is because of the fact that you don't have these moments at the gaming table where you stop and go, hey, wait, basically the Romulans attack, and then you're like staring at this page, and it says in this page, it just simply says, the Romulans NPCs are indicated at the back of this booklet. And that's it. That's all they say. And so you'll have to know where that is. If you don't know where that is, you're left basically doing what we're doing here on stream, which is basically briefly going, what exactly does it mean by at the back of this booklet?
Because it's also not in the character sheets.
Mm-hmm. It's maybe something that they meant to include, but didn't. It may be in the actual full rule book, and they just forgot. That's again. That's the That's them. Let's see.
Role-playing games. Star Trek.
In any case, so you would have the you would have their stats, and you'd copy them in here. So basically, I'm using this quick create. Basically, as I'm filling stuff out in here, I'm using the quick create because again, this basically, if you're looking for a more focused, basically, you're taking a more overall approach to this. Maybe you just come into sessions and you just quickly want to flesh things out, like we talked about with that, the not detail, basically the more breadth first, not the deep, basically not the deep where you're going and you're copying things out. The best way to do that might be to come into session, just create all the things that you feel you need notes for, create them all through the quick create. So you're just quickly dashing out, okay, there's that villain I've got, who's the, whatever his name was, Major Sub-Commander. Everyone loves Sub-Commanders, right? We'll keep his names in capital because he's important, so he's going to be shouting a lot. And we have an additional NPC who's running around. He is. And we'll call him Notable NPC. And then we would pull those stats in from PDF. So you got all those there. This is one of those we're actually having it as basically unformatted actually kind of works because it does make the line breaks work a little bit better. I wanted to call this out more, I'd bold things and things like that, but again, we're doing this relatively quickly. So, got that. maybe I want to include transportation methods, so I'm going to include the player character ship. What's the name of the player character ship? You have that at hand?
I do in just a moment.
Not a problem.
The Magellan, USS Magellan. You happen to ask because I was looking through the character sheet, and the Magellan has its own character sheet.
Yep. So basically, you're going to we have transportation methods because basically something like the Magellan, it has its own stats, it has its own things, so you're going to want to keep that somewhere. Because and again, basically like we talked about earlier, things are going to happen in terms of basically damage is going to be taken if you're running a series of adventures where it is less episodes of the week where everything is fixed, everything is assumed to be kind of status quo, but basically return to status quo at the end. Maybe you're going to track damage. Maybe it's going to be, this is more of a Voyager type thing where you're tracking food reserves, you're tracking how much dilithium crystals, you're tracking damage the ship has taken between things. So the left
How many photon torpedoes are left?
Exactly. Things like that, where you're not just assuming everything is restocked and back to normal at the end of the episode. So you're going to track all of you're going to create all of those, and then what you're doing in here is you're going to build out all of those things you're going to need in that session. So we have unclaimed space. That's right, I need to do it up here. Board. Investigation interrupted. Science vessel. Throw those locations in. Maybe I want to throw the high level. Maybe I want to throw basically a couple of the major ones where I know things are going to happen. So engineering, stellar cartography, and the shuttle bay. That's it for locations. And then basically throw in some of those people we just talked about, the ensign, the sub-commander, and the boarding party. So, now that I've done that, I've got all of those in here. Basically, I've got lists of basically those locations. I've got the list of those villains. So now, basically, even if you do whether you do have these just as here for notes or whether you have these here for your depth, this is your main page that you keep open when you're running the game. Basically, you can right click off of these and use the go-to thing here, open this in a new tab, look up the information, close the tab, and you're right back on your main page, so you have all those lists and things like that basically already ready and available for you. You can even use the timeline. You can have that in here. Like I can associate that part 1 timeline. I can associate the part 1 act 1 interval in here. So I have all of those in here, and I can I've got this nice nifty completed checkbox. So I can say, yep, we did that. Yep, we did yep, we did that one. We did that one. And we got to the first combat, and then people had to go. Cool. Now I've got those marked as completed. I can even mark locations, so they came to the shuttle bay, they went to stellar cartography. Cool. Actually, that's it. I want to do those two on those checkboxes. So basically, I have those checkboxes. Now I can go through here, and I can say select incomplete. So basically, if they're going through, I'm using this as notes. So now I have these as notes. When I look back on this session, what did I do? What didn't we do? I know for a fact what we've done. I've got an easy place to look that up. And then when I start my next session, I can use this as a base. I can say select incomplete with selected, copy or move, depending on whether or not you want to keep this as here's what I was planning to do and here's what we actually got through. So you want to copy them, or if you're like, no, I want this clean, I only want to know exactly what actually happened, use move. And move will remove it from this one and add it to the next one. And then you can say, I want you to a new session. We'll call this session 2. We'll save that out. So now I've cleaned those up, and now for those two, select incomplete. We've selected move to existing session. We've got session 2. Boom. So now I've got those, and I come into sessions. When I start to plan out session 2, I've already got those, those incomplete, that incomplete scene is in here, and those two incomplete locations, I've kept them in here as well. So now I basically have a good base to start building off of for my next session right off the top. And then the other thing that this basically the helpful thing about building it in sessions, and what I would use sessions for is you can also and you may want you may want to do this as a template, but you can create basically set up what I was going to do as a template. I would create a new template. I'd call it a Star Trek. Let's go here. And I'm going to create 2 custom fields because these are going to be numbers that I need to keep track of from session to session. The player's momentum. And the GM's threat. And now that I've created that as a template, if I create a new session, I can base it off that template, link that, and now I can call this session 3. And basically, up to you how obviously you're going to want to unlock some of the descriptions and things like that, or not, depending on how much information you want. So I put that in there, and now I start off with those momentum and threat fields available to me, and I can set them as 6 and 2. I can set defaults to them because there is a there are defaults for adventures and things like that, and I can have those set up basically in advance of these autofill in, or if I'm running it more as a single long adventure, maybe I only reset momentum at the beginning of an act or things like that, depending on how it kind of depends on how you want to run it in terms of how more epic it is, because momentum is that number which is the how much how much can the players push the adventure. If you're running a more cinematic adventure, have more momentum, reset momentum more often to higher levels, encouraging players to use it. So for a starter game, you may want to do that. Let them get momentum, push it a little bit harder, let them know what momentum is for, so that they're more excited about using it, more willing to use it, thus creating more interesting and exciting things, letting them succeed a little bit more, and less likely to end up in that weird rut where you're like, oh, we keep failing at these basic tasks.
But the problem is, gamers, you give them more something, they're just going to keep hoarding it, and ending that adventure with like 500 healing potions. And
that's why if you make it something that resets, gamer minds can understand, can track, if you give them a one-time you use it and it's gone, and you have to earn it back, that then they hoard, because I might have to wait for the right moment. But if it's something you're like, I'm going to take this away from you at the end of this session, and then give you 6 again, that triggers a different thing. But like, I better use I better min-max these as much as I can. I should end every session with 0 momentum so I can min-max these. But keeping these on the session let you track that. You can either keep them on the session. If you're wanting to keep them at a campaign level, you could add them as custom fields on the campaign. So that it's a longer term thing that you're keeping track of session, momentum and threat. But it's something that you remind, it's good to remind them that's there. It's good for you to remember, because it kind of sets the scene in terms of if it is something that you're wanting to keep between session and session, keeping that number in mind lets you know, this is a tense scene because we've upped threat, and that threat is carried over, and we still have a high threat because Wolfmom talked about a little bit in terms of earlier with the fact that players don't give you threat. Threat is actually kind of important in Star Trek Adventures. Because threat is if rules as written, and it's up to the GMs how they actually want to do this, but rules as written, if you want your NPCs to be able to do lethal attacks, you have to have threat. Because doing a lethal attack requires, in order for a player to do a lethal attack, they have to add threat to the pool. And as a GM, anytime that you would do an action that would normally add threat to the pool as a GM, you need to be able to remove threat from the pool to pay for it. So this does kind of lead to some weird and awkward situations where technically your Klingons could suddenly be forced to switch to non-lethal because you've run out of threat. But that's where you get into your adding threat and things like that, and you're wanting to push your players. But it does basically be, again, it reinforces that you need to keep track of that threat.
There is no honor in non-lethal combat.
Turn the safeties on the holodeck off. So, okay, so it is now 6:23. I've talked a lot about things like that. Is there anything in particular with these last couple of minutes here or so that you're like, oh, I was really interested about how Lorelink would handle this or this? We didn't really talk about things like maps and things like that, which pulling images out and putting them into locations for combat or star charts.
Yeah, I know the locations on maps thing was kind of interesting, but we don't have to worry about that today. Because I think I got your PDFs of maps, didn't I?
You did. Yep, that was in the bundle. There are PDFs of maps. So,
but I mean, the cool thing is hopefully this will be up on YouTube, right?
Yes, this is currently streaming live to YouTube right now.
No, it is not.
It is not? Why would you tell me that now at the end of the stream?
Because I just thought about it like 5 minutes ago.
YouTube itself is... Oh, it's unlisted. Huh. The answer is yes, it is live on YouTube, but no one could find it.
It's not on our channel.
Why does it default?
Not even under live.
Why does it default?
Because Google is just fantastic.
Now it's there. You can see it
There
now.
we go.
Cool.
Okay.
We've been streaming all this time, but we've been hidden. Woo! Secret
oh, no.
YouTube stream. But it does mean the fact that it is being recorded on YouTube, so yes, you will be able to find it.
Well, I mean, the great. I'm just saying, the great thing is I can go back and look over this stuff again. It's like, because I mean, the big thing was I started getting started on some stuff, but I think I started 2 levels farther down in terms of like where to start the story than I should have. So it was starting to become difficult. It's like, where do I put this?
Yeah,
and of course, I'm working on it during things like Origins and Gen Con, so we don't have time to talk about it.
Again, basically, that blank page syndrome is really kind of a killer when planning out using anything, and it's one of the reasons why I pushed for Lorelink to have these quick creates and options like that, because basically sometimes what you just need to do is just throw things on paper, as it were. Just be like, okay, I know I've got locations, I know I've got these events. Okay, cool. Let me just quickly throw all of them out there and worry about actually filling in the details on them later. And then doing all that, then basically then you're looking at it, you're like, oh, look at all the stuff I've got all this cool stuff. And then you're going in and you're like, okay, I want to link these things together. I want to add more info. I want to copy this stuff out of the PDF and put it into here. Oh, I basically, what we're pulling through here and doing like, oh, I've got this piece on the subspace interference. Oh, I know I need to add, I should add that to the locations. I've already created them, and that makes it a little bit easier. So I like, basically, that's one of the things I like about using Lorelink over some of the more complicated systems like World Anvil or something like that, is that there's a whole lot of, okay, you have 6,000 options, where are you going to start in there? Okay, or Obsidian Portal on the far end, where you're like, all I have is a blank wiki, where do I go? This gives you a little bit of structure, but lets you quickly create things inside of it.
But not half as fun as trying to put one of these adventures into Fantasy Grounds.
Fantasy Grounds is basically was a great tool for what it was in the time. Basically, it did a lot of interesting things with automation and things like that. And I appreciate the work that they did with that, but we have differing opinions on how GMs could build things out and things like that.
But it's also the one that has the most Star Trek books available for it, so
we're working on it. someday. We'll get that. We'll talk to him. We'll hopefully someday. Modiphius, if you're listening to this, we'd love to work with you and get your adventures into Lorelink to make things easier for GMs like Tony to be able to have these adventures already broken out into this nice, easy to read, easy to link together, jump between, and flow through format.
Please think of the Tonys.
All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about, ask about, point out, or otherwise, Visky, or do we want to go ahead and go into your? Do I turn it over to you as more of a social media person and have you remind all the nice people of all the cool social media stuff we have out there?
Well, I mean, I've got nothing else to really talk about when it comes to this. So, I mean, I don't have any of the old FASA books I also want to try to put in or anything like that.
Which FASA ones are you talking about? Like, you say FASA, I think Battletech and MechWarrior.
Oh, they had Star Trek.
Oh gosh, they had Star Trek. Really?
Ship combat, and I want to say also role playing.
Wow. I don't think I basically. No, I know about basically. I know about the one that was prior to this one. That was somebody else. I can't remember who did the previous RPG to this one. It wasn't FASA. It was some other group did. Wolf Mom may remember it because we had a friend who was really big into it. But I can't remember basically, like, I think there have been at least 3 distinct Star Trek.
Yeah, I think I missed a middle one in there. Because I remember when I first started getting into TTRPGs back in the early 90s, I'd found the Star Trek ones. I'm like, ooh, this is like D&D. No, it's not. And it's $150 on eBay. Holy. And it was, Star Trek role-playing game.
You're having the same sugar stock I did when I was looking up a Lego set that I had bought, and basically my nephew had basically really liked the one set of it and wanted one of the side sets of it, and I'm like, sure, we can pick up that side set. Oh, that Lego set's out of print. How bad could that? Oh. What do you mean this 20-piece set is now $300?
There's a basic game box set, $250.
Now I'm curious, what is the...
But yeah, I'm either. Oh, what's this one? Is that FASA?
Who's the publisher for that? Last Unicorn. There it is.
That's an animated movie.
But
okay, 1999. That's when I didn't have much money to buy games. Just like, I still need to catch a lot of Voyager and the last couple seasons of DS9 because at the time I didn't have television.
Yep. Yeah, basically, Last Unicorn had the rights to Star Trek. They produced the Star Trek role-playing game, Next Generation, and DS9. And the original series, they had books for all 3. They even had a time travel source book. Oof, that's daring. And a mini.
The core book is available on Abe Books for $162.42. $2 shipping. Well, that kills it if I have to pay $2 shipping.
They can be downloaded in PBS from Memory Icon under the Space Deck section. They're suitable for printing. All right. In any case, before we dig too deep into the nostalgia hole, because I know we both lived there for several months.
Yes.
So, basically, thank you all for coming to this stream. This is basically something I didn't announce at the top of it, but basically I can announce hopefully happily at the end of this. We have been pushing this month to reach affiliate status because we want to be able to do more of these things. We want to have basically greater resources for doing them. So we emotes, definitely emotes. So we were hoping it's going to be able to set up schedules for basically our one-off events as opposed to just regular streams. All those fun things are locked behind. Twitch doesn't give to you until you prove to them that you actually are dedicated to streaming and are actually streaming something people are interested in. So basically we have pushed this month. So we've had Mike, who's doing lots of cool streams on Pathfinder 2e games. I streamed some stuff on running the Blades in the Dark series, and we actually played that. And we actually did a little bit of video gaming as well, which is what we'll do here next week, next Tuesday as well. Beginning of the month, we did Fantasy, which is a precursor to the SSI role-playing Gold Box series, if you ever played those. But basically, so we're trying to reach 50 followers. Basically stream 8 separate days, and stream there, we get the right number of viewers and things like that. And by the end of this stream, basically assuming that basically Twitch doesn't basically move goalposts on us, we have reached those goals. So thank you all very much for everything you've given to us. Basically your time, your contribution. Woo! So basically, hopefully, you'll be able to see that information basically coming through here soon. And if you're basically, if any of you haven't followed us yet, basically now it's basically I'm not going to browbeat you and say, oh, please do this so we can help. Now I'm going to say, hey, please do, because we'd love to have you. Basically, you can catch our first affiliate streams. Yay! Thank you, Wolfbomb. We are going to basically streaming a little bit more next. Basically, we'll stream next week, next Tuesday. And basically, if you give us a follow, you'll know what happens. You'll be able to check our schedule and see what streams are running in the future. We're going to try to keep doing more types of streams like this with multiple people, basically bringing in some, either discussing events in the TTRPG space or discussing how to run games and systems. So it's not just my talking head all the time. Because Lore Link isn't just me. As much as the streams may look that way, it is definitely not just me. There's a team of amazingly hardworking and dedicated people. 20 modding these streams, our social media experts, Trash Diver, Unfortunate Sacrifice to the Pit, Tony, and basically Mike, who's been a great consultant, Martine, who has definitely helped a ton with the dev work. You've seen her also running games on this stream as well. So all of these people have contributed a ton, and we wouldn't be here without them. And so I like getting them in front of the camera so they can talk about their role-playing experiences as well. Whether it's the relative newbie, haven't really played TTRPGs, to the have been playing TTRPGs for as long as I have, or like Tony's in and out of the RPG space. So it's good to get a variety of opinions and expressions and things like that, because that's our base. We've been incredibly lucky during the last decade to see a bunch of new people come into it. So we have a bunch of different backgrounds, a bunch of different ideas and concepts and gaming groups and things like that. And there's a whole bunch of cool games out there. So it's great being able to highlight those. And that's kind of the purpose of these streams, is to highlight those different viewpoints and basically work with the people who are watching and listening and getting their opinions, and seeing what viewpoints they add as well. So all that to say, if you want to know more about those, basically more about our streams, follow us here on Twitch. If you want to catch our older streams, catch us on YouTube. Which basically these will end up on YouTube, and I'll definitely make sure that this one becomes public afterwards. And if you want to basically get updates on news, there are 2 different ways you could do it. You can dive into the abyss, which is social media, which is basically Bluetooth. I almost said Bluetooth. Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, eventually. We technically have a Twitter account, but no one's really using it.
No, we don't.
Don't go there. Did we actually delete it? Are we gone?
No. I'm just saying what we do, but we don't use it.
Yeah, we don't use it. If you want to see old,
it exists, so nobody else will try to grab it.
Yep. Our primary is Blue Sky and Facebook. We're getting more onto Instagram as well, and Threads. So basically, keep an eye on those space. Or if you were like, hey, you know what? I don't like doing social media. I'd much rather have specific news delivered to me in a monthly context that just summarizes that. We've got you. We've got a newsletter that goes out once a month that discusses all the cool and interesting things that happen during the month. Occasionally, we'll send a second one out. We're having something exciting happening, like we do for a Kickstarter, pushing for affiliate for streams. Sometimes we'll do things basically for having extra live streams or things like that. We'll announce those there. But we're talking 1 or 2, not the deluge that sometimes social media can give you. Basically, newsletters.
I think last year we didn't have more than 15. over the course of the entire year.
And that's because we had a Kickstarter. So,
Yeah.
we had some exciting news in there. Outside of basically, so all of those are exciting and interesting ways to follow us here on basically follow us and get more information from us. Lorelink is basically if you're interested in Lorelink and you're like, hey, I want to try that out. Great. We would love to have you. We're currently in early access. We're currently working with some people, getting feedback, and we're adding some new features and things like that. Once we exit that early access, we will be available for purchase. We're hoping to do that by the end of this year. I will knock on wood, basically do that. I'm not going to set any dates or anything like that outside of hopes and dreams. But that is the plan. So if you want to see more of Lorelink, you can catch us at the basically events that we're going to be at, such as Origins. We are confirmed to have a booth at Origins 2024. So if you're the going out in public type of person, you can catch us there. I can tell it's... I mean, some people are going out in person and have those face-to-face conversations. Some people are social media managers.
I like face-to-face conversations, but I don't want to see many faces right now.
Understandable. And hopefully we'll have more announcements over other shows and things like that we will be at here in the coming months. So, thank you very much.
Which you can find on social media.
Or our newsletter. Or by watching our streams. Any of those, you'll find out that information. But you've got to follow one of those if you want to find out. So, pick your
follow
poison.
Social media or the newsletter, please. Think of the Tonys.
We've hit affiliate, so it's okay for you to say that. So, all of that to say, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the stream. We will catch you all next Tuesday. Basically starting at 5 o'clock for some kind of TTRPG related video game. We'll find out what it is together. Thank you all and have or just follow them all. Yes, that is the correct option. Thank you, Wolf Mom.
I do like that. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Yes, that.
Thank you very much, and we will catch you all later. Drat still has the old card on it. I need to get rid of that. It still says Lorelink. So don't go to Twitter. Go to Blue Sky.